Baltimore, America's 10th largest city, home for more than 786,000 people. It's a metropolis on the rise, in the midst of a fast-paced renaissance. But despite this city's positive transformation, there is an age-old problem that lingers and refuses to go away. In fact, it consumes the lives of a population close to the size of Annapolis. Gee, boy, H. That's what they call it on the streets. You know it as heroin. Nationally, it has captured 1.5 million people. In Baltimore, nearly 28,000 are addicted to the drug. For them, heroin is more than a habit. It's a way of life.
My whole nervous system is shot. I can't control my bowels at all.
This Baltimore woman has been hooked on heroin for 17 years. She started at 13. Every day, her body craves the short-lived calm of the drug.
I don't know if I'll kill somebody or what. You know, I just can't control myself. I want to scream, and I don't know if I will or won't. I want to run. I even feel like I want to just go ahead and kill myself, you know, just to get it over with. But instead, I did it slowly, and once I got some heroin, all that left, and I was feeling just fine.
Hers is a typical story of heroin addiction, and addiction drug counselors have seen thousands of times.
There's a saying among narcotic addicts, heroin addicts, that you start out by taking the heroin, and then very quickly the heroin takes you.
In Baltimore, nearly 28,000 people have been taken by the drug. That's according to a study by the Maryland Drug Abuse Association. They are faces from most every walk of life. Studies show 80% of Baltimore's addicts are male, 26% are white. Almost half are between 20 and 30 years of age. Most followed a familiar path to addiction. The first time is so good, it keeps them coming back for more. But the first time is never realized again.
You begin to like it. You know, like I say, the high was mystical. And once you begin to like it, you know, you're just drawn into that atmosphere, that environment, everything that goes along with the game. You know, you're just drawn right into it, chasing that mystical high.
Most addicts experience that mystical high in their teens. They try it to be part of the crowd.
You get that opportunity to be a part of something. Okay, guys will say, well, did you do anything today? Yeah, I did something. Even if you didn't do it, yeah, I did something today, just to be a part. And then you keep on doing it, and you keep on doing it.
But to keep on doing it, you need lots of money. The drug being sold on the streets ranges between $35 and $140 a bag. That's about 2 grams, good for 1 day. What street dealers call a New York quarter or a jumbo. To get that fix, addicts will do almost anything.
Stealing, hustling, knock on wood, so far I haven't done that. Selling your body, however you can do it.
We do know that addicts will engage in crime. Our own studies here indicate that addicts will engage in crime at the rate of 248 days a year while addicted, as versus only 41 days a year not addicted and in the community.
Based on those figures, addicts are actually committing crimes almost 5 days a week. A full-time job of supporting a habit via crime. But there is an alternative to a life of crime for drug addicts, drug treatment. You're watching a drug addict therapy session. The participants ask that their faces not be shown. They are women trying to beat the habit through counseling, group therapy, and this synthetic narcotic, methadone. But there's a catch. There's not enough funding to meet the treatment demand.
If a person has a problem today and wants to get into a program for treatment, he would probably be someone 35th or 40th on a waiting list and would have to wait 3 to 6 weeks before there would be a spot open to take him.
What's he do or she do in the meantime?
Continues to shoot.
Tomorrow night, buying heroin easily on Baltimore streets, and new studies that show addiction levels are rising everywhere, including the counties. Mike Hofeld, News Scene 2. The scene is a street corner in Baltimore. It's a March afternoon. Watch carefully. Police say these men are buying and selling narcotics in broad daylight. That car serves as a sort of street corner drugstore. Police say cash and drugs are being passed over the roof as if it were a counter. But these men don't realize is that they're being photographed by undercover police. Our camera is also recording these scenes in an undercover unit. About 10 minutes later, police have seen enough. Vice squad units move in to make the arrests. Arrests that slam the door on a network of transactions that probably began in Europe, continued in New York, and worked their way through the streets of Baltimore. For years, police have had trouble working their way up the heroin network ladder because street dealers often beat the charges. But for the last year, police have unveiled a new weapon, videotape. Police contend it leaves little question for juries.
Well, there's no doubt about it. As we more and more use video and we become more sophisticated with the use of the equipment, we will be able to show the juries the actual deals. We will show the transaction with the heroin changing hands, and how can an individual contest that?
One of the city's biggest heroin dealers, Maurice Peanut King, was sentenced last Friday for dealing heroin on the streets of Baltimore. During his trial, King pleaded innocent, but prosecutors were armed with evidence that included videotape such as this of heroin transactions. That videotape proved to be the downfall of King's financial empire. During the trial, prosecutors showed transactions at one street corner that pulled in $20,000 a day. That revenue financed King a home in Prince George's County, a wardrobe carrying a six-figure price tag, and stocks and bonds giving him a total worth of over $1 million in assets. But now, all that is history for King, and police continue their crackdown on the drug dealers.
I think that the one thing that we all have to remember is that we can make 1,000 mistakes, but they can only make one. And if we're there when they make their mistake, then they're arrested and hopefully convicted.
Despite the police department's declaration of war against drug dealers and the effectiveness of videotape, the heroin problem continues to grow. Police blame the increase in part to logistics. They can't stop the flow of heroin into the city.
You can go up to New York and come back in a day and, as I say, have a week's supply of heroin at your disposal. That also avoids maintaining large stashes of heroin here in Baltimore, which again makes it difficult for us when we know someone is a serious dealer, in that we don't have that much heroin here to seize.
Even when one dealer is put behind bars, several so-called independent dealers spring up in the hopes of cashing in on heroin's pot of gold. Not able to completely stop the supply of heroin and unable to eliminate the demand through treatment centers, law enforcement officials are fighting what appears to some to be a never-ending battle.
Eventually, if you really want to cope with the problem, right down to the bottom line, what you'll be ending up doing is putting lock caps on gas tanks, because individuals will find ways to distort their emotions via some kinds of substance abuse. But we can hold it down.
There is no simple solution to this city's heroin problem. The Maryland Drug Abuse Administration reports heroin use is on the rise. To this point, police have been unable to stop the flow of the drug into the city. However, with videotape and other undercover techniques, they have been able to put a dent in the city's heroin connection. In essence, it's street corner warfare, pitting police against the dealers. But as the war rages on, the victims continue to be the addicts and the city in which they live. Mike Holfeld, News Scene 2, Baltimore. You're watching one of the city's many heroin dealers in action. With a slap of the hand, police say heroin is delivered. It's a scene repeated on city streets thousands of times every day. Addicts we talk to agree. A street buy is easy.
You walk around, most like majority of the time is a ghetto area. And you just go around and you ask somebody. You look and say, well, he looked like he knows where something is at. And you ask, do you know where I can get something at? They'll ask what you're looking for. You tell them.
If you need it, you'll get it. If you need $100 worth, well, you'll get $100 worth. If you need $500 worth, you'll get $500 worth. Oh.
Experts admit there are no precise head counts to determine the size of Baltimore's heroin addict population, but recent studies indicate there are almost 28,000 users in Baltimore City. That's close to the population of Annapolis. The Maryland Drug Abuse Association reports that's about 3,000 more than in 1979. Better than a 12% increase, despite a major crackdown by police and prosecutors.
If our past history shows us anything or tells us anything, we can probably predict that if this level of heroin influx continues, that we'll see it breaking off at the edges toward Frederick, toward Eastern Shore, and out into the other places.
The study's statistics suggest history may be right. Addiction levels have increased significantly in Baltimore County and Montgomery County, and increased slightly in Prince George's County. That spread of addiction to the suburbs doesn't surprise one doctor treating area addicts for a decade.
But heroin addiction is not a respecter of boundaries. It has a lot to do with availability. Where the trade is and the business will make more customers.
At this East Baltimore treatment center, doctors have witnessed a steady increase in the heroin problem.
I suspect that right now you're seeing a peak in the number of people asking for treatment and who are in addictive situations because of economic stresses, social stresses. I think these things are contributing to a peak at this point, but the increase in numbers, that's been going on for a while now.
The demand for heroin on city streets is so great that many addicts are buying powder that contains little heroin at all. At the Baltimore Police Crime Lab, technicians are finding the heroin is often diluted or cut with a bitter-tasting white powder, a process street people call stepping on it.
Heroin users apparently accept the fact that heroin dealers offer no real quality control. We talked to addicts here at the Glenwood Life Drug Treatment Center about that. Some were willing to face our cameras. Others asked that their faces not be shown.
People say it's heroin. You really don't know. You know, it's a Russian roulette game. It's the chance that you take. But usually your body is physically hurting just that bad that you have to take that chance.
Yeah, but you think about that later, you know, I guess in the years to come. But same if you was doing it, you would do the same thing. You wouldn't care what it do to your body.
Just gotta have it.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night, we'll examine the police battle against heroin on the streets. Where does it come from? And what can be done to stop it? Mike Hofeld, News Scene 2.